Hello and welcome back to Inquisitor Martyr. Last time we kept going with intel and got a little bit of good stuff, some psalm codes and what have you. But we're gonna keep going with that and see what we can pull out of the next few intel runs. Okay, reflect damage, damage bonus, yeah, that's tolerable. Now we have chance to summon a demon, that's easy, nothing difficult. Heavy armor, that's what the Melta or the Inferno pistols are for.
We have a tough nut to crack. Our forces are unable to launch an aerial strike on a bunker protected by counter-battery units. You take out the artillery pieces first, then mark the bunker for the expurgation, while I feed you the necessary data from orbit.
So after months of not playing, my D&D group finally got back together, which is pretty cool. Still running through Rime of the Frost Maiden, absolutely just getting our asses beat every time. We're on this pirate ship that got frozen, fighting an ice troll, which honestly the description made me think it was just a frozen crackhead. And it was funny because one of our players died, our bard, and I was able to revive him. But our DM's like, oh, I thought you guys would have an easy time with this. And I'm sitting here thinking, why would we have an easy time with this? This troll regenerates and just keeps coming back from the dead. We don't know what it is. And it's like, no matter what we do, it just keeps springing back up. We finally had to, in a single, turn, effectively, torch the body. Didn't even get time to loot the place because a dragon showed up, which we now have to figure out how to escape. Currently the idea is set the whole ship on fire, pop Leoman's tiny hut and just hide in there for 8 hours, get a long rest, and then hope the dragon abandons the place after the fire, which is probably our best option. As much as I don't want to try that, I begrudgingly have to kind of agree it's our best bet. Outside that, I don't know what we could really do. The other option is our paladin pop fog cloud and then we just leg it. But that's only a static 30-foot cloud, and it's an ancient dragon, so metagame wise I assume we're going to be let loose, because a bunch of level 5s can't take on an ancient white dragon. There's no way. But I don't know, it's rough, and our DM's like, oh yeah, so we're gonna use the rules that Critical Role uses for reviving, so there's a chance that the player just is dead if they roll wrong. And I was like, this kind of sucks. We're already getting stomped continually, making it difficult just to have us, we're trying to recover what little we can. Nobody wants to die, and it's kind of BS to be like, oh yeah, no, I'm just gonna make it tougher to revive people. It's like, dude, cut us a damn break here. I'm not asking for everything to suddenly become easy mode. I'm just asking for a little bit of mercy, considering every encounter is us limping back to civilization. We are not in a good position, and considering every encounter, our DM's like, oh, I thought you guys would be doing better with this. It's like, no, we're not. I'm a cleric, and I remember seeing all the stuff people saying, oh, 5e, it's a lot easier, and you don't have to focus so much on being a healer. all I do is heal. If I'm lucky, I can fire one guiding bolt spell. Short of that, every spell I get is allocated to healing, and I cannot afford to not heal. And I'm sitting here, Cleric of the Forge, and I regret taking it just because of how much we need heals, and I'd rather be a Cleric of Life at this point, because then, like, a healing word at 5th level, my minimum heal is like a 7 at that point. And then it, you know, peaks out at like 10. But it sucks. Because one of our players has never played D&D before. And, like, she's playing a ranger, so she's staying back. Admittedly, another player, who is one of my best friends, those two are engaged. And he built her character effectively, and she's overpowered as can be for the setting. If we really wanted to enforce the rules of her character, she's invisible at all times. Because our DM's like, yeah, it's like, except for like 2 or 3 hours, it's twilight or night. And our ranger is a ranger of like twilight, and it's effectively if anybody relies on dark vision and it is twilight or darker, the character is considered invisible. So we could BS that and pull that rule out and be like, hey, but our DM also nerfed my use of heat metal because it was just absolutely obliterating this, like, Fearbolg, I think it was, or something like that. They had metal armor on, and I used heat metal on their armor because that's all this spell is good for. That and melting any metal, or like melting ice around any metal thing frozen in a lake, which I did once. But so it's like, yeah, we're hesitant to bring up any, not even overpowered, just strong abilities, because we know our DM's just gonna kneecap it. And it really sucks. Because it's like, we need these abilities. Rime of the Frost Maiden is not a balanced encounter, or balanced campaign. It just isn't. Everything I've seen other people who are like, yeah, it's not easy in the slightest. And, you know, I don't sit here being like, oh, it needs to be a cakewalk, but, like, come on. You gotta look and be like, hey, if one troll manages to body multiple players and kill one of them, maybe things are a bit tough. And it's not like the whole reason the bard even got hurt was because we dropped the troll and then we investigated the body and then it sprung back up. Even though realistically, based on the time frame he gave us, it should have got right back up the second it dropped. We shouldn't have been close enough or gotten close enough to investigate the body, which is, you know, a little BS, but whatever.
Kill confirmed. Target offline.
But yeah, it's going tough, man. I will say though, 5e clerics are a lot better than 3-5 clerics. Admittedly, like, 3-5 kind of sucked because a lot of classes were like, hey, here's 3 abilities. Flesh everything else out with feats. Though, that said, I do miss having a lot more feat choice. Because you could, even if you're making NPCs, like, I DM sometimes, so I love making NPCs, I love making magic weapons just for the NPCs to give them personality. And, like, magic weapon customization is absolutely kneecapped. Same as, like, class customization. You know, I can't be like, oh, I'm gonna switch partway through and be this or do this. You know, you get a couple feats, and that's it. So there's definitely some problems. Making monsters is hell on earth.
Rinse and repeat in the name of the Emperor.
I was like, oh, I'll look in, because I wanted to make some monsters. And it's like, oh yeah, you have to go to the Dungeon Master's Guide. I'm like, wait, why is that not in the monster manual? It's like, I don't know, it's just in the DMG. I'm like, okay, bit weird.
You are still alive and more or less in one piece.
But then
that's a success,
they have like
I guess.
no
Initiating
templates.
exfiltration rituals.
So it's not like, oh, just apply this skeleton template to make a skeleton thing. It's just like, hey, figure it out. Like, for a edition that's very friendly to players, this is the most hostile towards DMs I've ever seen D&D. And I suffered through 4.0. It's all okay. A little bit tougher. Yeah, reflect 3% of warp damage. That's easy mode. What do we get now? Reflect all damage is warp damage. I don't care. And movement speed, easy.
Priority targets identified in teleportarium range. Decoded Vox transmissions and Augur scans indicate high importance and limited combat capabilities. Neutralizing the targets offers significant long-term benefits.
But going back to D&D, I know I saw a thing a few months back saying that there should be a new edition coming out, because it's going to be, I think, like the 50th anniversary, I want to say, soon, in the next coming years. And I can guarantee it's going to be 5.5. 5e has had so much growth for the D&D community compared to 4.0 or even 3.5 that they'd be stupid to throw away what they've already built. Admittedly, and I think I've said this on here before, I swear shows like Critical Role and Stranger Things have done more damage to D&D than the whole Satanic Panic, Jack Chick, all the madness of people saying D&D makes you worship the devil. I swear it's been worse. Because you get a lot of, I describe it as theater kids. You know, people who've complained about everything. Like Pathfinder. Pathfinder 2.0 is removing any reference to slavery in their books. I'm like, that's kind of weird because it's always been used as like a justification of why a group is bad. Like, oh, these are the evil guys, they have slaves. You're like, oh, okay, I want to free them because they do bad things. But removing references to it, it's like, so what do the bad guys do that's bad? You know, wanton destruction isn't the only thing, because stuff like within D&D, Pathfinder, that whole sphere, things like slavery were, you know, removing the autonomy of an individual, that's the shtick of lawful evil. You know, hey, we have a rule of law. It's bad, but it's there. Chaotic evil is going to be, you know, wanton destruction, but you're removing a core thing of lawful evil. And to a degree, neutral evil, but... Or, like, the complaint of people saying, like, oh, we need to get rid of alignment stuff. Like, oh, the orcs are evil. Which, to a degree, I understand. But if you're going to remove that inherent alignment, there's going to be problems.
Loading.
One, how do you describe, like, an illithid, a mind flayer? They consume the brains of sentient beings. I don't consider that a good act, or a neutral act. That is, in my eyes, evil. It's on the same tier as cannibalism. It is a bad act. Granted, cannibalism, depending on the situation, desperation, yada yada, can be justified. But your average dude who's just like, I want a human sandwich, that's pretty evil. But so how do you justify that stuff? There is inherent evil in certain actions. And I've seen people be like, oh, it's wrong. And I'm like, if you're going to remove it, let's say orcs, then you need to have a section in the monster manuals, in all this stuff, that is orc societies, and it needs to present a number of societies. Here is some tribal orcs. They are evil. They follow, the strongest lead, or they're a magocracy that obeys power, as opposed to skill or utility. Introduce ways that it's like, hey, an individual may not be bad or good, but their society, their surroundings are. Because that would be, in my eyes, an acceptable substitute. Because then for a DM, you can say, oh, okay, here's some pre-made things I can use. Because not every DM is able to write a 40-page world guide and do all this stuff. Sometimes you're doing a one-shot with some buddies. You don't have the time to sit down and go, oh, I gotta do all this. You just want to grab some stuff, slap it together, and go. I can't really say I do that, because when I used to play DM for a group when I was younger, I sat down and they didn't take it seriously, but I definitely did. I wrote down every little note, pre-built all the encounters, had stuff planned. That's just me. But some people do just kind of off the cuff do stuff. I know a friend of mine, we were talking about D&D when this was years and years ago, but he would always play with his older brother. And he one time goes, yeah, we have countless times had a variation of a town called like River Deep, River something, Water Deep. It was always a aquatic something town, because they would just slapdash a town in, because it was never important. And that's the kind of stuff where a little bit of depth within a monster manual does wonders. Hell, I know 3.5, I think it's Monster Manual 4 or 5. I think it's 5? Yeah, I think it's 5. Had a section in it for... I'm trying to think what it was. There was one I remember specifically for gnolls. And what it did was it talked a little bit about gnolls. Here's a couple like special ones within their society, like half fiend or a fiendish sorcerer leader, all this stuff. But then they had a map that was this giant geode, and they're like, yeah, they live in this, and it had a little bit for if you wanted to design an encounter around it. And stuff like that I really appreciate, because it's nice to have some extra maps, and it's nice to have a little bit of pre-made stuff just to get people going, especially for new DMs. A lot of people want to get into it, and it is a very high barrier to entry, because you have to make everything, and you have to make sure it doesn't suck. You can't just be like, oh, what do you guys want to do? And then try to slapdash things together, because especially when you're new, you don't know how to balance. You're gonna just be like, yeah, this is a level 8 sorcerer, and your level 2 party is gonna be like, how do we kill this guy And at that point, you're either going to be intentionally gimping that sorcerer, or if you play with intent, that team's getting wiped. And it's not fun. That's something I wish there was like a page or two in a Dungeon Master guide that's like, hey, intro to DMing. And lay out things like, hey, play monsters the way they should be played. You know, a zombie is going to drop a character to 0 hit points, stop what they're doing, and just attack the body, trying to eat them. They're not going to drop them, turn, and focus someone else. While, you know, a Minotaur might focus other players after dropping one. You know, some might target sorcerers or spellcasters over other characters, you know, demons or someone with mind control abilities. Or they might try to mind control the fighters. You know, introduce ways to play that. Explicitly point out TPKs are not good. Your goal is not to wipe your players. I've seen way too many people online talk about, like, oh yeah, I wiped out my party. It's like, that's not a good sign. Your player deaths should be something that just happens, you know, bad rolls for them, good rolls for the monster, or honestly, just stupid decisions. Players will do dumb things. They always do. Which, kind of leading back to the whole critical role thing, way too many people expect it to be this, like, super dramatic, over-the-top thing. I openly called the troll a frozen crackhead multiple times. I have had groups where we're just sitting here joking around, trash-talking, like, the monsters in the most absurd ways possible. I played a warlock whose patron was essentially like Cthulhu, a creature of madness, and I kept, as my character, would make references to memes because my idea was, oh, well, in this setting, it's the ravings of a madman, but in reality, I'm just being an idiot. It's not... People put way too much of, like, it needs to be the super dramatic Lord of the Rings tier story. It's like, nah, it's gonna be a bunch of idiots doing dumb shit. Like, I remember one time, it was actually the last time I played Pathfinder. We're sitting there, or no, it was before that, it was 3.5. That was a long time ago. We were sitting there, and our party runs this old man who's like, I need help fighting these rats in the basement. I'm like, are you sure they aren't goblins? Huh? And he's like, no, I'm sure they're rats. I'm just sitting here going, damn it, I don't want to fight stupid rats. We also almost died to the rats, because, you know, first level parties. Always fun. That's also the fun part. First level parties are just... It's the most embarrassing ways to die. You know, you get mobbed by rats. A goblin gets a lucky stab on you. You try to climb up something like a 10-foot ledge and you fall and take 6 damage and you're almost dead. Ah, good times. That's not bad, but also, if I'm wounded, my energy shield is gone. So that's kind of moot. Oh well. But that is all for now. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit the like button, it helps out the channel a lot, and if you haven't already, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.